Everybody always says you got to be realistic or you're doing fine. Why don't you just stay comfortable? Why can't you just be happy with what you have? But if you're here, it's because you want to change your life. Maybe you're fitting into boxes right now that are not meant to be fit in. Maybe you're in a career right now that's not truly fulfilling and you're just doing it because it's safe or what somebody told you to do. Maybe you're wanting to change your body, yet your entire family and friend group is the opposite and trying to hold you down. Whatever it may be, I'm here to tell you today that this idea of you have to be realistic is the exact thing that's keeping most of us stuck in the exact place that we don't even want to be in the first place. So today I'm going to share with you that you need to be delusional to actually change your life. And I'm going to share with you and break down the science and the spiritual lessons and the teachings on what that actually means. Now, real quick, why should you listen to me? Ever since I was 19, 18 or so, I first built my first successful business at 19, coming from nothing. I used to struggle with a lot of major insecurities, lack of self belief, lack of confidence. And now, today at 25, I am the dream person I've always wanted to be. At the age of 19, 18 or so, I built a game plan for 4 years of all the dreams I want to accomplish. And I've been able to accomplish them. Speaking on stage, traveling to Hawaii, building an actual successful business, transforming over 500 people's lives. But most importantly, creating the person that I've always genuinely wanted to be. So let's break down the mind and let's show you on why you need to be delusional so you can genuinely change your life moving forwards. Let's dive into the whiteboard. All right. So first and foremost, too, guys, if you do enjoy this content, make sure you like and subscribe and send it to a friend who might need this as well. So be delusional to actually change your life. First and foremost, what do I mean by delusional? Well, let's break this down. So let's say this is you here, right? And you have this certain vision in mind of this goal. But what you also have is beliefs. You have an ego slash, I should say, identity. You have past experiences, right? You have your environment. And all of these things already are shaping how you see life. So, in these beliefs that you have, this ego that we have, this identity, the past experiences, our environment, I should also say our fears as well, they shape how we perceive our lives. And what I mean by that is the meaning that we give to situations that happen in our lives. Nothing has inherent meaning. We are the ones that give it meaning. How we give things meaning comes from all these systems that's programmed into us. Same with how we define things. And this then shapes again how we see life. And the whole idea around all of this comes down to understanding how the brain works, specifically the animal brain. So I like to look at success in ourselves as two splits. So you have your higher mind, and then you have your animal mind. The animal mind wants safety, security, it wants predictability, and it wants to stay the same. The higher mind wants flow, it wants trust, it wants alignment, it wants to follow its love, its joys, its passions. So, the part of you that's watching this training today, you're coming from your higher mind, the faith side of you, where it's like, I want to change my life. There's something in me that's pulling me in this direction where I just want to make a change. I'm sick and tired of where I've been. But so many of us, we get stuck because we allow the animal mind to run our lives. And I'll say this is that it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to change it. But it's not your fault because this is how we're brought up. If you live in the Western world, at least, this is what I know. If you live in the Western world, most of us are brought up this way, right? If you look at the news, if you look at the government, it's all about fear, propaganda, pushing you down, causing you to feel limited, that you can't change, that you're just trying to survive and get by rather than thrive. But I'll tell you, like, I didn't come here in this world, and I know you didn't either, to just want to survive and get by, to play this game safe, right? If you looked at, if you imagine if you're playing a video game and you just try to play safe the entire time, right? Like you're playing GTA, for example, and you're just trying to play it safe. That's no fun. It's not fun at all. The game's not meant to be played that way. But yeah, we're sold this lie, right? And we allow this animal self to take over. And this is why so many people fall in the footsteps of their parents, even though if it might not be their passion to do so. But it's a predictable, safe path, right? This is why your parents will always influence you and tell you most of the time to follow kind of something similar that they did or someone in the family did because they know it's a safe, predictable path. And this is why, again, entrepreneurship, for example, is often bashed upon because it's not a quote unquote safe path. It's unpredictable to the animal mind. So it's not your fault if this is what you've been dealing with. And where I'm going with this is that when we let this animal brain take over and run the show, the brain is literally a prediction machine. It is constantly trying to predict the future. That voice that you have in your mind, often the negative voice, right, is trying to influence you to allow this program to keep playing over and over and over and over again. And when you step outside of that program, this is where fear, you don't feel safe, right? You feel uncomfortable. This is where you start to get all these feelings. And a lot of us, when we have these feelings, we're like, hey, I feel this way. Something's bad. This means something's bad. And I need to go back to my comfort zone, right? It's almost like that tale where back in the day when we were cavemen, everyone was living in the caves. But then a couple of the cavemen, they stepped outside the cave and they saw the light and they saw the beauty in this world. And they came back and they're like, guys, we're stuck in this cave. We're stuck in the darkness. Like, look at the light. There's so much more out here. But they were like, no, get out of here. You're crazy. You're delusional, right? But I will tell you here is that the delusional ones are the ones that change the world. So why can't that be you? The delusional ones are the ones that actually make change. Because if you're not delusional, if you're being realistic, you're just following everyone else's footsteps. And I'll tell you though, if you're on your path right now and you're completely lost and you don't know where you are and you're aiming to figure it out, that should be the biggest green flag in the world. I used to look at that as a bad thing, that I'm on the wrong track. But now I realize that it's because I'm making my own path. I'm doing what I want to do. And I would rather do that than give up those hopes and dreams just to follow another path that someone else told me just because I can actually see the path. But when I follow that path, guess what? It's all an illusion. Because when you're following those paths, where are you coming from? You're coming from a place of all I want is safety, security. You're coming from a place of fear. And what you'll notice is in your life, you'll keep finding more and more and more of that. But when you decide to take the courageous action forwards and follow what it is that you actually want, your dream, the self realization, when you carve out your own path, again, you're not going to see every single footstep ahead of you. But that is the green flag that is telling you that you're on the right path. You will get there. Trust in yourself. Do not collapse back into the fear. So, this is kind of how the brain works. And when we have these certain beliefs, right, when we allow the animal brain to take over, again, it influences everything. It influences everything. So let's say here it is, right? We have a narrow focus to fuel the same belief system. Our focus is only on fueling the same thing that's playing in the background, the same belief. So we're only focused on that. So you might have all these other opportunities in your reality, but you can't pick up on them because it doesn't serve this program that's playing out in the mind, the realistic mind, right? You're trying to change your life, but you don't have any evidence right now. But we do have so much evidence for that old program that's playing. And when I say old program, it could be anything, right? Life, life is scary. You need to play life safe, right? Success is for lucky people. We'll say being rich, rich is evil. So a lot of these programs were put into us, right? These beliefs were programmed into us from society, from our parents at a very young age. And then they shape then how we, again, perceive our personal reality. But when you're focused on, if you go out in public and you're focused on finding a blue car, you're going to see the blue car everywheres. But if you go out in public and you're not focusing on any kind of blue car at all, that blue car is all around you still, but you're not picking up on it because it's not in your awareness, it's not in your focus. That's what I mean by there's so many opportunities to change our lives all around us. And this is the idea of abundance. Abundance is all around us. Just most of us don't tap into it because we have limiting beliefs that we lack. We're not enough. We don't have enough. So these belief systems shape that focus. So we go out into our external world and we find the evidence, right? So we find the evidence to reconfirm the same system so the program can repeat itself. Because remember, the animal brain doesn't care that you want to win. Your animal brain does not care if you succeed. It doesn't care if you lose weight. It does not care if you make more money. It does not care if you find love. It only cares about you staying alive, you being safe. And what that means is that it cares more about predictability, security, safety, which means it wants the same thing to play over and over and over again. So this is why if we want to change your life, you need to be delusional. Because if you keep playing realistic, if you keep playing the game from the same systems, you'll keep getting the same thing. But let me tell you this. Let's break it down even farther. This is the now. Let's say you just woke up into this world today and you had no recollection, remembrance of your past. You had no remembrance of your past, but you woke up today with your same passions. Who would you be then? What would you do? If you just woke up today in this world, but you had no idea of your past, all of your beliefs were stripped away. You're just here in the now, in this experience. What would you then do? You wouldn't worry about, oh, I got to make enough money to do this. Oh, I can't go do this. I can't travel this place. You would literally just be like, okay, well, I want to go do this thing. And then you would just go do it. And you'd find a way to go do it. But the reason why we don't do that is because this idea of the past, right? When you're a little baby growing up, as you were growing up, programs, so we'll say beliefs, labels, experiences, we'll say society, culture, your family, they all start to add resistance, these limiting beliefs, these programs into you that now then make up who you think you are now, right? Who you think you are now. And this is what creates the identity. And let's break that down even farther. So here you are now. Here's the thing we call future. And then we have our past. What if I told you that time actually doesn't exist? Everything is happening here and right now. Every single thing is happening here and right now. But in those past now moments that you've experienced over time, right? In these past experiences, think of it like this, okay? When you go through your life, is that like in a movie they have these little tiny clips. There are these exact specific moments that's happening now, 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 now. But the human brain, the mind, how we conceive it in this 3D world is time. It stretches out. But actually everything is happening here and now. Your consciousness, your focus is only focus here and now. So, what keeps the past and the future alive, right? Because typically, as the animal brain, the ego, the identity. So your identity, your ego is one of my amazing spiritual coaches taught me this. A great example. Your identity is important because the identity is the glue to your book. It holds you together. If you didn't have an identity, if you didn't have an ego, you'd just be all over the place, right? Like you'd be tapping into all these different focuses. So the ego, the identity is important because it helps keep you grounded. But the problem with that for many of us is that we let our ego and identity run the show the entire time. We'll say specifically the ego. We let the ego run the show, but the ego wants to stay alive. And this is why one of the famous quotes, I forget it now specifically, but it's something about how you have to die in each moment, which means you have to be willing to let go of your past every single moment. Because if not, the past will try to continuously define who you are in the now and who you're going to be in the future. Because this is where you let the animal brain take over and run the show. And this is where ego, we'll say animal brain. It can only survive, the ego itself can only survive in the past or in the future. It cannot survive in the now. So the ego, the sense of self, who you think you are, based off your past experiences, right? That kind of shaped who you are. You know, the one who is not good enough, the one who doesn't have enough, the one who can't go do these certain things because they're not smart enough, they didn't grow up in the right place, the one who has never been good at these certain things because that's what their parents told them, the one who feels the need to be attached to every single thing because growing up they never felt safe. So now they try to hold on to everything, right? This is just your animal brain trying to keep you safe and secure. It's just trying to protect you. But we've been letting it run the show. And again, it's not your fault because this is how most of us are brought up. But when we allow it to run the show, when we allow our past to define us, our past then convinces us that the future is going to be the same. And that's very dulling. It's very sad. I'm always going to be this way. I've always been this way. I can't let go. I'm scared, right? We let all these things run the show. And then what happens then is when we get so caught up in these stories, then we start having anxiety. So we're not even in the now. The now is happening, but we're up in our animal brain, worried and anxious because we let this thing run the show. And it shows in our nervous system and everything, which I'm not going to dive into that today, of course. But it's quite beautiful when we can realize the entire process, when we realize that we are all of this and we have the power to actually change it all. It's one of the most beautiful things. But you've got to be willing to let go of who you thought you are so you can rediscover who you really are. Are you willing to let go of the story that you've been telling yourself so you can rediscover who your real self actually is? And the beautiful thing about that is that you're the author, you're the one writing the entire book. So you can write the story in the way that serves you best. But this is how that animal brain takes control. And this is how it's keeping you stuck when you want to change your life. So, for example, right? Let's say in the now, you decide, I'm going to make a change. All right. Here's what happens when we try to make a change. You ever hear the hero story before? Psychologists call it the emotional cycle of change. There's many ways to describe it. It's there for a reason. But here's what happens. Okay? So here, let me make this a little bigger. I'm going to move the table down. So here is, let's say change or we'll say the goals, right? The success that you want in your life, that is it right here. Okay. And there's four stages to this. There's one, two, three, four, five. All right. So stage number one is when you dive into change because you get super excited. You don't really know what the journey is going to be like, but you just jump in with that motivation, that optimism, right? Maybe you've been experiencing so much pain in your life that it's finally forcing you to get started to make a change. Okay, that's number one. Number two, so number one would be called uninformed optimism. Number two is informed pessimism. That's where like you've been consistent for a bit, but now that initial high is starting to die down. And maybe the progress isn't coming as fast as you expected it to be. Keyword expected, right? And your mind's trying to control everything. So it's trying to dictate on how or when the changes are going to happen. So now you're starting to get a little frustrated, a little fumbled with this journey. And then number three is where 90% plus of people collapse and they go backwards until the pain gets strong enough for them to start the cycle over and over and over and over again. And this is where I need you to be delusional because this is where the ego, okay, the old self is screaming at you to go back home to comfort zone. You're getting, it's like an elastic band. You're stretching too far out. This is not comfortable anymore. The brain is freaking out. This is why you'll notice you start procrastinating, imposter syndrome. You notice old cycles where you start to judge yourself, or maybe you hit these plateaus in your journey, you hit these challenges, and you notice these old thoughts start to come up again. It never works out for me. I can never change. There's something wrong with me. I'm broken. I'm not good enough. Do you think those thoughts are motivating? No. They're anchors that drag you down, that suck out your soul, that kill your motivation. And then it's just because that old self is trying to stay alive. It's like, no, you're interrupting the story. I don't know who I'll be if I change. And that can be so scary for people, right? One of our most biggest fears is that when we face ourselves head on, we're going to find out that what we've been fearful of most is actually true. It's never true. On the other side of your biggest fears, on the other side of that cocoon stage, when the caterpillar goes in the cocoon, is the beautiful butterfly that you've always wanted to be. So, are you willing to let go here? Are you willing to let go and trust? There's been many times on my entrepreneurial journey, for example, I like to use entrepreneurship for an example, but I can use fitness, relationships, many. But there's been many times on my entrepreneurial journey where I've been at my countertop, basically in tears, losing everything, feeling almost hopeless. The old identity, the old, parent chatter of like, it's never going to work. You're not going to be able to do it. That success is for the lucky people. You're just being in dreamland. It starts to scream. But inside of me is this burning fire. I call it my soul that says, you cannot stop. You have to keep moving forwards. You have to keep going. You already know what's back there. That's why you're trying to get away from it. So, what is the freaking point of going backwards? Why go back into a place that you're trying to get away from? You have to keep moving forwards. So, I would keep showing up in this complete void in this unknown section right here. I would keep showing up, and I will tell you this is where you allow life's miracles to play out. This is where you surrender to what is, and you keep showing up. You keep that faith. You keep following that pole, even if you might not know exactly what to do, but you just try your best and you refuse to give up, you refuse to collapse. I'm telling you, that is the point where you become the 10%. That is the point where breakthroughs happen. That is the point where magic happens. That is the point where synchronicities will come into your life and every single thing will change. And the more you do this process, the more you become fearless, the more you build more self-belief, the more you tap into your actual soul, your higher self, your dream self, the person you've always wanted to be. But you have to be willing to break this pattern, this cycle here that is keeping you stuck. If you want to change the person you want to become, right? This success, if you think about it, the success that you want in your life, the only difference, the new and the now. The only difference is number one, they have new results. But how do they have new results? It's because they took consistent actions, right? We'll say, I'll put a C there as in for consistent. They took consistent actions over time. How do you take consistent actions over time? How does somebody stay consistent with something and act long enough to be able to get those new results? Well, you need to think plus feel different, which also means you need to change your identity. Identity is created through consistent thoughts and emotions held over time. And then actually, that will literally convince you to become who you think you are. So that forms your identity. And our behaviors are based off the identity. And that stems down to your core beliefs and also the old fears. So the new you has let go of those and they let go of the limiting beliefs as well. So now you have new empowering beliefs. For example, if you want to be rich in your life, but you're always brought up to watch the movies where the rich people are evil and that money is the root of all evil and greed and stuff like that, but you want to be rich, you're contradicting yourself. Your belief system is like, no, this is the program that's been always safe and secure. So every time you try to change, you're going to self-sabotage. Imposter syndrome is going to take over because it's just trying to get you back to that old self. But when you can change that root, when you change those core belief systems, when you let go of those fears, then how you think and feel will change about money, right? About success, which then influences how you take action. And over time, that does shape your new identity. And when you stay consistent, when you have enough faith in that void, when the results are not showing up, because it does take quote unquote time for results to show up in your life, change, remember, change happens instantly. Results is the thing that takes quote unquote time. So when you change that and you stay consistent, you have that faith of like, no, I believe in myself. I know I can do this. I know I can do this. When you stick and stay true to that, one of my clients asked a beautiful question on my masterclass last night. She said, how do I know I'll succeed? How do I know I will succeed? And the answer I gave, one of the answers I gave was it comes from a decision. The difference between a winner and a loser is the winner decides they're going to win. The loser, the ones who do not succeed, they give it up to hope. I hope I can change. I hope I can get there. No, you take ownership, you take responsibility, and you decide that you're going to be the winner no matter what it takes. No matter what it takes. So that is the new you. That is the difference. That is the difference. If you want to become someone new, you need new results, which requires you to take new actions over time, which requires a new identity, right? New thoughts and feelings, which requires a new belief system. That's it. If you keep that going, you will keep transforming yourself into who you've always wanted to be. So just a quick recap on our training so far, right? Why you need to be delusional. Because your brain has certain set programs, and oftentimes it's coming from the animal brain trying to keep you safe and secure, keep you limited, right? Keep you stuck. But when you can break that down and you step into that faith, the higher mind, which I'll probably make a training here soon on how to develop a relationship with your higher mind. But when you can break that down, you change that, right? You can let go of the past. You can let go of this old sense of self. You can change it. Give the ego a new job. You can change it and you can be here now and recreate who you actually want to be. And you can make it through that void. You can make it through that middle section where everyone always goes backwards and fails. Right? And the key there, right, is that because again, here's the thing. When you're in that void, when you're taking new actions, there is always, 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 sorry, I promise my writing's not that bad. It is just the iPad. Right? When you're taking new actions and you're working on changing your life, there's always this certain period where there is no results, right? Where a lot of people talk about the practice of delayed gratification, right? You order a package off Amazon You order it, there's going to be a little lag before you get it. Not a long lag nowadays, right? We almost get things instantly, but there's always that little lag. And not a lot of people can stay quote unquote patient because they're trying to get away from the pain. They let their pain drive them to make drastic changes, right? And I'm not against surgeries and stuff. You do whatever you want, but we'll make these crazy, quick, drastic changes. People who want to lose weight, they're not willing to fix their food relationship and change their identity, but they're willing to follow a crazy, painful, drastic diet that's they know is not going to be sustainable long term, but it'll allow them to lose the weight so they can feel a little bit better. But what if they actually just start to feel better about themselves now, start to love themselves now, which will automatically make them want to eat better, and then face themselves, whatever causes them to have the emotional eating, fix that, change it. Now they have a healthy relationship with food, and now the weight is just falling off because they're being more of who they actually are. See, that's how I trained my clients in the past when I was doing only weight loss. We had an over an 80+% success rate. And I promise you, anybody who actually stayed true to the program, followed through, the results would be like 95% plus because it works. It's just how we function. But not a lot of people are willing to go through that void because they're in that pain and they want the instant relief. So if you are in that instant relief, I suggest you watch my recent video, one of my recent trainings on how when you come from lack, you will always find more lack. The key is to find that inner feeling that you want externally of yourself. Find that now and then go create what it is that you want. So that way you're not always coming from a place of suffering, of needing more, because that is a never-ending battle. And I think I'll end the training off there today. So if you did watch this training, if you made it to the end, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love making these trainings for you guys. My mission here, my goal is I want to help people follow their dreams. I want to help people create their absolute best selves. So remember how actually amazing they genuinely are. So if this helped you in any way, shape, or form with that mission, make sure you like and subscribe, show some support. So show some support. A little tongue twister there. And yeah, share it with a friend. Maybe there's a friend who is willing and open to want to change, to kind of be willing and open to actually want to change. Share it with them, and it might just change their life as well. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you on the next training.